Right now I'm watching $500 million freeze solid on my computer screen, and it feels better than my first cup of coffee. The server room hums around me like a mechanical heartbeat, all those racks blinking green, green, green in the darkness. I can smell the ozone from the cooling systems mixed with stale coffee and that particular scent of electrical equipment running hot. It's 4:47 a.m. on a Wednesday morning in downtown Chicago, and for the first time in 12 years, I'm not here to fix anything. I'm here to watch it all break. My name's Caleb Rodriguez. I'm 58 years old, and today I'm going to teach a 29-year-old CEO why you don't fire the guy who built your entire digital empire over a LinkedIn post. But let me back up a bit. 3 days ago, I had a corner office on the 42nd floor of Pinnacle Financial Group. Chief Technology Officer, the guy who designed and maintained the trading platform that moves $500 million a day without breaking a sweat. For 12 years, I've been what they call the digital janitor, cleaning up algorithmic messes while the suits upstairs count their bonuses. Here's the thing about financial technology. It's not glamorous. It's not innovative. It's about reliability. When a pension fund in Ohio wants to buy 100,000 shares of Microsoft, they don't care if your code is written in the latest trendy language. They care that the trade goes through in 3.2 milliseconds without losing a penny. That's what I built. A fortress that handles 8,000 trades per second during peak hours and never, ever breaks. The company was founded by Caleb Martinez, Big Cal we called him. Tough old guy who started the firm with nothing but a borrowed Dell computer and pure stubbornness. He understood that technology wasn't just support, it was the foundation. When he died 8 months ago, I actually took a personal day. Not because I was emotional, because I knew what was coming. Enter Rachel Adams. 29 years old, MBA from Stanford, and about as much understanding of trading systems as my ex-wife had about fixing carburetors. Don't get me wrong, Rachel's smart, real smart, but there's book smart, and there's been in the trenches at 3 a.m. fixing a critical system smart. She had one of those. I had the other. Rachel brought in her own crew, young, eager, full of buzzwords like digital transformation and disruptive innovation. The kind of people who think experience is baggage and assume anything built before 2020 is automatically obsolete. Leading this parade was Ashley Wilson, 24 years old, fresh from some coding boot camp, calling herself an AI/ML specialist. Ashley looked at our rock-solid C++ foundation like it was cave paintings. "This legacy architecture is totally holding us back," she announced during her first team meeting. "We need to migrate everything to a microservices framework with AI-driven optimization. The current system is basically digital archaeology. Digital archaeology, the system that had processed over $60 billion in trades without a single settlement error, was digital archaeology. My routine was sacred. Get in at 4:30 a.m., check the overnight Asian market feeds, monitor the settlement protocols, run diagnostics on the core systems. It was a rhythm I'd perfected over more than a decade. The system purred like a well-tuned Harley because I knew every bolt, every circuit, every line of code that made it tick. I'd trained most of the junior developers myself. Guys like Justin Parker, who I'd hired straight out of Northwestern. Smart kid reminded me of myself 30 years ago, eager to learn, respectful of the systems that came before him. Not like these new hotshots who thought they could rebuild Rome in a weekend. Then came the LinkedIn post. It was Tuesday morning, markets were humming along nicely, and I was deep in analyzing some latency spikes when the notification popped up. Rachel had shared one of those generic leadership memes. You know the type. Sleek modern office, inspirational text, the whole 9 yards. This one showed a glass conference room full of young executives, and the caption, "The future belongs to leaders who aren't afraid to disrupt old paradigms and embrace change." Below it, she'd written her own little essay, excited to continue transforming Pinnacle Financial. Sometimes you have to clear out the old guard to make room for innovation. Legacy thinking is the enemy of progress. Hashtag leadership, hashtag innovation, hashtag digital transformation. Old guard, legacy thinking. After 12 years of keeping their lights on, making sure their trades executed flawlessly, preventing the kind of catastrophic failures that could sink a company overnight, I was the old guard. My fingers moved before my brain could stop them. I posted a simple reply. Experience beats enthusiasm every time. Some foundations are worth preserving. I added a GIF of an old craftsman working on a piece of fine furniture. Patient, skilled, taking his time to get it right. Apparently that was a mistake. 20 minutes later, my desk phone rang. Not the trading desk with a technical issue. Not operations asking about server capacity. It was Michelle Davis from HR, her voice dripping with corporate sympathy like honey over a knife blade. Caleb, could you please come to conference room C? Rachel would like to have a conversation about alignment and company culture. Right there. That's when I knew. You don't work in corporate America for as long as I have without recognizing the sound of an execution being scheduled. Alignment. Company culture. Those are death phrases. Nobody calls you for a culture chat when the quarterly numbers look good. I looked at my monitors. Everything green, everything running smooth as silk. 99.97% uptime, 0 critical errors, latency holding steady at 2.8 milliseconds. I'd spent 12 years building a fortress, and now I was being called to the throne room by someone who thought experience was dead weight. I grabbed my coffee mug, the one Big Cal gave me with World's Okayest CTO printed on it, and walked through the maze of cubicles, past the junior developers, guys I'd mentored, systems I'd architected from scratch. They kept their heads down. Smart move. They could smell what was coming like animals before an earthquake. Conference Room C was one of those glass fish bowls that management loves because it makes everything look transparent while giving them a perfect stage for corporate theater. Rachel was sitting behind the conference table like she was conducting a board meeting, even though it was just her, Michelle from HR, and Ashley hovering in the corner with her laptop open to what looked like a PowerPoint about legacy code migration strategies. Rachel didn't even look up when I walked in. She was studying some papers like they contained the secrets of the universe instead of whatever HR checklist they use for firing people these days. Caleb, please sit. We need to discuss your recent social media activity and how it aligns with our cultural transformation initiatives. I stayed standing. Old habit from the Army. You don't sit down when you're about to get court-martialed. My social media activity? Your response to my LinkedIn post felt dismissive and resistant to change. We're trying to build a culture of innovation and forward thinking, and comments like yours send the wrong message to the team. Ashley piped up without taking her eyes off her screen. Yeah, like the whole foundation's worth preserving thing. That's exactly the kind of legacy mindset that's holding back our digital transformation. We need to embrace disruption, not defend old systems. Old systems. The platform that processed $2 billion in trades every week without dropping a penny was an old system. Rachel, I said, keeping my voice level like I was explaining something to a particularly slow recruit. That system handles $500 million in daily transactions. It hasn't had a critical failure in 8 years. It's not broken. It doesn't need disrupting. That's exactly the problem, Rachel shot back, finally looking at me with the kind of expression you'd give a stubborn child. That defensive, change-resistant attitude. We're moving Pinnacle into the future, Caleb, with or without people who can't adapt to new realities. Michelle slid a thick envelope across the polished table. The sound it made, that soft whisper of paper on wood, was louder than any alarm bell. We're transitioning you out of your current role, effective immediately. Security will escort you to collect your personal items. Your access credentials have already been deactivated for security purposes. Already deactivated. They'd killed my access before I even walked into the room. Classic corporate execution protocol. Shoot first, explain later. I stared at the envelope like it was a snake. Severance package, probably. Non-disclosure agreement. All the legal paperwork to make my 12 years disappear without a trace. Understood, I said. That was it. No arguing, no pleading. No giving them the satisfaction of a reaction they could use to justify this later. Sometimes the best response is no response at all. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Rachel blinked. She'd obviously been expecting some kind of fight, maybe some anger she could point to later when people asked why they fired their most experienced tech guy. Instead, she got a guy who'd seen enough corporate theater to know when the curtain was falling. That's it? She asked, sounding almost disappointed. That's it. If I'm not aligned with the culture, then this isn't the right place for me. I turned toward the door, leaving the envelope on the table like it was contaminated. Good luck with the disruption. I walked out of that glass box and headed back to my desk. The walk felt different now, like walking through a graveyard at midnight. Everyone was suddenly very busy with their keyboards, very interested in their screens. But I caught a few glances. Quick looks, some sympathetic, some nervous, some just plain confused. Justin Parker, one of the developers I'd hired straight out of college, looked up as I passed his cube. Kid had good instincts, understood systems architecture like it was music. He gave me the slightest nod, barely perceptible, but I caught it. He knew. He understood exactly what was happening and what was about to happen. That nod told me everything I needed to know. The smart ones could see the storm coming. 2 security guards were already waiting at my desk. Good guys, Jerry and Mike. I'd bought them donuts every Friday for 6 years. They looked about as comfortable as pallbearers at a wedding. "Sorry, Caleb," Jerry mumbled, studying his shoes. "Orders. Just doing your job," I told him. "No hard feelings." I started packing my personal stuff into a cardboard box that seemed way too small for 12 years of work. Photo of my son at his college graduation. Coffee mug from my old Army unit. A stress ball shaped like a server rack that Big Cal had given me as a joke after a particularly brutal system migration. As I was packing, Ashley made her grand entrance with a cart full of new equipment. Shiny MacBooks, external monitors, some kind of wireless headset that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Don't worry about documenting the legacy systems," she announced to the room loud enough for everyone to hear. "We're migrating to a completely new cloud-native architecture anyway. AI optimized, fully automated, way more efficient than these old manual processes." I almost laughed. She was planning to rebuild in 6 months what had taken 12 years to perfect and test and bulletproof. But I just grabbed my box and headed for the elevator. Here's what none of them knew. What none of them could have known. When you build a system from the ground up, you don't just write code. You embed insurance policies. You plan for the day when someone who doesn't understand the machinery tries to optimize it into the ground. Let me tell you about Continuity Protocol Delta. 8 years ago, Big Cal and I were pulling an all-nighter trying to fix a nasty bug in the risk management algorithms. It was around 2 a.m. We were both running on coffee and stubbornness, and he was sitting on the floor of the server room eating Chinese takeout with a plastic fork. "Caleb," he said, soy sauce dripping onto his tie, "what happens if I drop dead tomorrow?" "Stock dips, board panics, business keeps running," I said, not looking up from my screen. "No, I mean, what happens if Rachel takes over and decides to modernize everything? Kid's smart, but she thinks innovation means throwing out anything older than her iPhone." I stopped typing. We both knew Rachel even back then. Sweet girl, but she had that MBA confidence that makes people think they can fix things that aren't broken. "If someone takes over who doesn't understand the systems," I said carefully, "they could cause some serious damage trying to optimize things." Big Cal nodded. "Exactly. Build me a safety net. Something that keeps the platform stable even if they get rid of everyone who knows how it actually works." So I did. I called it Continuity Protocol Delta. Not malware, I want to be clear about that. I'm a professional. It was a safety mechanism. The high-speed trading algorithms depended on daily authorization handshakes from senior-level credentials, my credentials. Every morning when I logged in, I'd punch in a rotating verification code that told the system experienced operator present and accounted for. Without that daily handshake, the system would assume something had gone wrong: security breach, staffing emergency, hostile takeover. After 72 hours without verification, it would revert to what we called conservation mode, manual authorization required for any trade over $10,000. That was fine in 2015 when we handled maybe 500 trades per day. By 2023, Pinnacle was processing 8,000 trades per second during peak hours. If the system reverted to manual authorization during market hours, it would create a backlog that would take decades to clear at human typing speed. The elevator ride down to the lobby felt like descending into the real world. The Muzak was playing some jazz version of Don't Stop Believin', which seemed pretty ironic considering a lot of people were about to stop believing in their job security. I took the L train home to my apartment in Lincoln Park. For the first time in 12 years, I wasn't carrying a work phone, wasn't monitoring server alerts, wasn't mentally calculating system optimizations. I just sat on the train watching Chicago roll past the windows, thinking about the digital timer that was now counting down somewhere in the depths of Pinnacle's server farm. Wednesday passed quietly. I actually went grocery shopping during normal business hours, which was weird. Ran into neighbors I hadn't talked to in years because I was always either at the office or unconscious. Got a few sympathetic texts from colleagues, but I kept my responses short and professional. No point burning bridges or giving anyone ammunition for later. Thursday morning brought the first signs of trouble. Ryan Collins from operations called around 9 a.m. "Hey Caleb, sorry to bother you, but we're seeing some weird latency spikes in the settlement processing. Nothing major, but Ashley says it's probably just optimization variants from her new monitoring scripts. You ever see anything like this before?" "Probably just needs a system restart," I said, sipping my coffee. "Try the standard troubleshooting protocols." "Yeah, that's what Ashley suggested too." "Thanks, man. Hope this whole thing blows over soon." It wasn't going to blow over. What Ryan was seeing was the system getting nervous, like a guard dog when its owner doesn't come home. The trading engine was running fine, but it was starting to log unusual authentication requests. Small hiccups, warning signs that only someone with 12 years of experience would recognize. Thursday afternoon brought more calls. Server temperatures running higher than normal, probably because Ashley had cranked up the air conditioning to 75 degrees because she was chilly. These systems needed to run at 65 or below. API responses timing out intermittently. Nothing catastrophic yet, just the digital equivalent of an engine running rough. By Thursday evening, the system had been without my authorization handshake for 48 hours. I imagined the code executing in the server room. Silent lines of logic checking and rechecking, looking for the daily validation that wasn't coming. System status: Senior Administrator absent. Last authentication: 48 hours. Condition: yellow. Action: prepare conservation protocols. Friday morning at 9:30 a.m., the Chicago Mercantile Exchange opened for business. At exactly 9:47 a.m., Continuity Protocol Delta reached its 72-hour threshold and activated conservation mode. My phone, my personal phone, started buzzing with Twitter notifications from financial news feeds I still followed. I made coffee and opened my laptop to watch the show. The first tweets were confused rather than panicked. Anyone else seeing delays on Pinnacle execution? Order stuck pending for 2 minutes. Pinnacle platform acting weird. Can't exit my position. WTF? By 9:35 the tone changed. Pinnacle system down, losing money every second. This is insane. 8-minute order delays on Pinnacle. Something is seriously wrong. Beautiful. The system wasn't down. It was working exactly as designed. Every trade was being logged, acknowledged, and queued for processing. But instead of executing automatically at light speed, each transaction over $10,000 was politely asking for manual keyboard authorization from a senior administrator. Since I was the only senior administrator and I was currently unemployed and drinking coffee in my pajamas, those authorizations weren't happening. The queue was backing up exponentially. At 9:30 there were maybe 100 trades waiting. By 9:45 there were 10,000. By 10:00 the system had logged 50,000 pending transactions with an estimated processing time of 3.2 years if someone started typing authorization codes right now and didn't stop to eat or sleep. My landline rang at 10:15. Yes, I still have a landline. Old habits from the military. The caller ID showed a number I recognized. Brandon Foster, chairman of Pinnacle's board of directors. This was it. Time to negotiate. "Mr. Rodriguez," Brandon Foster's voice was tight with controlled panic. "I believe we need to have a conversation." I took a sip of coffee and settled into my armchair. "Mr. Foster, how's the trading going today?" There was a pause heavy enough to crush diamonds. I could hear shouting in the background, probably the trading floor having a collective nervous breakdown. "Cut the games, Caleb. Rachel says you sabotaged our systems before leaving. Our legal team is already looking into this." "I didn't sabotage anything," I said, watching CNBC show a red trading disruption banner across the bottom of the screen. "The system is working exactly as designed. It detected that authorized senior personnel were no longer available and activated the safety protocols that Big Cal and I implemented years ago. It's protecting itself. Protecting itself from what? From inexperienced personnel making changes that could destabilize $500 million in daily transactions. Looks like it was a smart call." The shouting in the background got louder. I heard someone yelling about margin calls and another voice screaming about SEC inquiries. "How do we fix this?" Foster asked, his corporate composure cracking like ice under pressure. "You need the override authorization codes. I have them, Ashley doesn't, Rachel doesn't, nobody else at Pinnacle has the clearance level to bypass conservation mode." "Fine, consulting fee, whatever your rate is, just get down here and enter the codes." I laughed. Couldn't help it. "Mr. Foster, I don't work for Pinnacle anymore, remember? My access was revoked yesterday. If I walk into that building and touch those systems, that's unauthorized access to a financial trading network. That's federal prison time. I'm not going to jail because your CEO wanted to disrupt something that wasn't broken." Long silence. Then, "What do you want?" Here it was. The moment I'd been building toward for 72 hours. I want Rachel to understand that experience isn't the enemy of innovation. I want Ashley to learn that legacy systems aren't legacy because they're old. They're legacy because they've been tested under fire and proven reliable. And I want my position back, with a seat on the risk management board to make sure this kind of disaster doesn't happen again. A board seat? You're a technical employee. Mr. Foster, I am the technical foundation of this company. Today you learned what happens when the foundation walks away. The whole building falls down. Your choice. Give me a voice in decisions that affect critical infrastructure, or start shopping for bankruptcy lawyers. I hung up and went back to watching the financial news. By noon, the estimated losses had climbed to $25 million. The SEC was monitoring the situation. Other trading firms were routing orders around Pinnacle rather than risk getting caught in their digital traffic jam. At 12:43 p.m., my email chimed with a company-wide announcement. Effective immediately, Rachel Adams has been reassigned to Chief Operating Officer to focus on business development initiatives. We are pleased to announce the appointment of Caleb Rodriguez as Chief Risk Officer and newest member of our Risk Management Board. Mr. Rodriguez will oversee all technology stability and infrastructure security protocols. I finished my coffee, grabbed my keys, and headed back downtown. Walking back into the Pinnacle building felt like entering a disaster zone. The lobby was packed with panicked traders making frantic phone calls to clients. The elevators were jammed with executives and lawyers rushing between floors. When the 42nd floor doors opened, the noise hit me like a physical force. Not the usual hum of business, but pure chaos. I walked straight to the server room. Foster was there with half the board, all standing around looking helpless while Ashley frantically typed commands that the system politely ignored. She looked like she hadn't slept in 24 hours. "Status report," I said. Foster nearly collapsed with relief. 3.2-year backlog. System won't accept any override commands. Ashley's been trying to restore normal processing for 4 hours. I sat down at the main console. The screen showed the familiar manual authorization required. Senior Administrator access-only prompt I'd designed 8 years ago. I placed my hand on the biometric scanner and entered my personal override sequence. The screen flickered. Red warning text vanished, replaced by a progress bar. Restoring automated processing. Validating queue. 25% complete. The room went dead silent except for the hum of cooling fans. Then the magic happened. The backlog began clearing like water through a broken dam. 10,000 trades processed. 50,000. 100,000. I turned around to face the room. Systems are back online. Latency is normalizing to 2.9 milliseconds. Full functionality restored in approximately 20 minutes. Rachel was standing against the wall, no longer the confident disruptor who'd fired me 3 days earlier. She looked like what she was, a smart young executive who'd just learned a very expensive lesson about the difference between managing people and understanding systems. "Ashley," I said, "find me the documentation on the overnight settlement protocols. Start reading. You're going to understand how this platform actually works before you touch another line of production code." Ashley nodded, the attitude completely gone. "Yes, sir." I looked at Rachel. Nothing personal. But next time you want to disrupt something, make sure you understand what you're disrupting first. Some foundations really are worth preserving. She nodded quietly. "Understood. I apologize for the hasty decision. The next few months were about rebuilding trust and establishing proper protocols. I set up a mentorship program pairing senior developers with junior staff. Ashley, to her credit, turned out to be a fast learner once she stopped assuming she knew everything. even earned some respect for her willingness to admit mistakes. Rachel and I developed a working relationship based on mutual understanding. She handled business strategy, I handled technical infrastructure, and we both made sure the other understood the implications of major decisions before implementing them. That's the story. How a 58-year-old former soldier used 12 years of institutional knowledge and one carefully placed safety protocol to remind a company why experience matters. I'm still there, still making sure the systems run smooth, still training the next generation of developers. The difference is, now they listen. Now they understand that just because something was built a decade ago doesn't mean it's obsolete. Sometimes the foundation is the most important part of the building. And here's the thing they don't know. I never actually removed Continuity Protocol Delta from the system. It's still there, buried deep in the code, waiting quietly. Foster asked me to deactivate it once things settled down. I told him I did. I lied. Because you never know when the next Rachel might walk through the door. You never know when the next disruptor might try to fix something that isn't broken. And when that day comes, the system will remember who built it, who protected it, and who really holds the keys. That's Caleb Rodriguez, Chief Risk Officer, signing off. The servers are humming, the trades are flowing, and the foundation stands strong.